Hi guys, I'm Nina,
I'm Jamie.
and we are Bloody Essentials. We have to make a little scheduling announcement. Due to Ethan having a family emergency, he could not be with us tonight. So we switched around some things and we are doing Cat People 1942 instead. Yeah, it's
Mm.
going to be fun.
I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I love old Hollywood type movies, so this was like right up my alley and I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it yet. So I'm really excited and yeah, it was fun to hear like the opening RKO music and just the film noir-esque music playing during the credits and I'm just like, it's just want to curl up with a blanket.
I know, it just takes you back to a different time, like, in film. Obviously, this movie is, like, beautiful too. I think it's, like, such a shining example of, like, black and white cinema and, like, the use of shadows and everything is amazing. But, like, the clothes, like, the way that people talk, like, there is a little.
Oh, we'll get into that.
Yes, there's even a little bit of humor that comes into it at certain times, like with the maid and stuff like that, and that's kind of like that's different, you know? So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's this is not the type of movie that I tend to watch on a regular basis. Actually, my fiancé David is the one who introduced me to it because he's into film noir and everything, and this was kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, this is kind of both of those things. It's a horror movie, but it's also like a film noir, so yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, I love old horror movies. I think they were so creative, and this one is very different.
It's very different.
Yeah, in a good way, and I liked it.
Yeah, and I was saying at the beginning, before we get into the plot and everything, I'll just say that, I tried to read a little bit about this movie, and so this studio had just put out Citizen Kane the year before this movie came out, which actually wasn't actually like an overwhelming success for them at first. Like Citizen Kane took some time to like have the impact that it has now. Like, it didn't do
Which
so
is
great for them.
insane.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
insane because it's like that's still considered one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't think so, but I did watch it.
Right? And so, yeah, the studio, like, kinda made this shift around this time where they were like,
Wow,
"Okay, let's make some of these horror movies because that
I
seems
love
like
that.
yeah, that seems like it'll be good and everything." So, this is one of those movies that they decided to do. Val Lewton, was the producer
Mhm.
of this. It was kind of his first, like I guess it was like his first one that he was kind of in charge of and everything. So it's kind
Yeah,
of special in that way. And this was a low budget, fairly low budget movie for the time. And it actually did really well for the studio. They actually
yeah.
made good money on this movie. Although, like I was saying when we were chatting earlier, it didn't necessarily like hit with audiences right away. People had like
I could
reception
see that.
wise, people weren't yeah, people weren't sure how they felt about it, I feel like.
I get that, and I read somewhere they were trying to do what Universal was doing at the time with their Wolfman and stuff
Yeah,
like that, and I totally get that. But it's very interesting that, it's just it's so different. It's so different, and, it's one of those movies where the villain isn't necessarily a villain, you know? You really feel for this character, so
I know, and it's like, man, it's just so different. It's very, like, atmospheric, like, it has such
Mhm.
atmosphere to it, and it's
Yeah.
cool because it's like there's this, like to me at least, there's this, like, undertone of, like, sexual danger
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
this whole movie. There's a lot of themes about, like, women and, like, their
Mhm.
sexuality, and so, like, that
Yeah.
that, like, undertone of sexual danger, like, exists throughout the whole movie, I feel like, and,
In 1942.
I know, and I was saying, people really dragged, Simone Simon, the woman who plays the main act or character, they dragged her performance, but then when I think about it, I'm like, well, of course they did, because she probably made them uncomfortable at the time. It has to deal with, like, there's sexual undertones to this movie, and I think
Mhm.
I think, like, that is more anyway, I'm, like, on her side, and I'm like, "Whatever." You shouldn't drag her. She was great in this, and I think that you guys just felt uncomfortable.
I agree, but we'll jump right in onto plot points.
Yeah. Okay. So we are introduced to the beautiful Irina. She's at the zoo sketching a panther, and she has a little like meet cute with a fella.
It's
You know,
very meet cute-esque, yeah.
she like throws the sketch, doesn't get it into the trash can. He picks it up and throws it. And she does it again, and they have this little chat. And I just have to say, like, I love her sketch, like the panther with like the sword through it. It's like this little introduction to the mythology we kind of get introduced to.
Also, I think it's funny that he asks her about drawing the panther or whatever, and, she lies and says she's a fashion well, she is a fashion designer, but she lies and says she's drawing a sketch for fashion, whatever, and we see the drawing, and it's the sword through the panther, which we learn what that means later on, but it's very interesting she's lying right off the bat with this guy, you know?
Yeah, yeah, she does. I also had to note that, like, I'm obsessed with her little hair bow that she was wearing at the zoo, where I'm like, I know that's not really like a thing as much these days, but it's so cute and I wish it was a thing because it's adorable.
She wears it a couple times throughout the movie, and it's very cute. I think it looks great on her.
I adore it. But anyway, they have their little bit of chatting, and he kind of tries to pick her up, and she eventually invites him up for tea. And we learn some things about her as a person. She's not really a people person per se.
Mhm.
She literally tells him, you might be my first friend. You're the first person I've ever had over here. So we get a little introduction to she's a little different.
She mentions that the panther she lives close to the zoo, so she hears the noises of the animals, and the panther in particular, she says, screams like a woman,
It's
and
so
she
cool.
also mentions that, she likes the dark and it's friendly, and I love that.
I actually I got I recorded that quote and because I'm like that is a perfect sound bite. And I love it. I
Right?
have to make a reel with that because that's amazing and true.
Yeah, it is, it's so cute.
Yeah, so I love her vibe. I love their talk, like the dialogue. Again, like you might be my first friend, and just like learning about her. And I have to say, like beautiful cinematography already. Like there's a
Mhm.
shot of her standing, I think, by the window as she's listening to the sounds of the panthers and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
just oh, it's so beautiful. So she kind of gets into a little bit of her origin story, because there's this like statue in there and everything with the king or whatever his name is, and we
King
learn
John, yeah,
King
and,
John.
it resembles the drawing that she was drawing earlier.
Yeah, with the cat, and he even says, like, "Hey," and she's like, "Oh, it represents evil, it's not a cat, it represents like evil." But
Mhm,
yeah, we learn a little bit about her, where she came from, and that this village that she was in had witches and
mhm.
Satanists, and there was all this stuff going on. So she's got this cool, like, kind of folklore mythology, like, to her past.
Yeah, it's very interesting because she mentions that, she makes a point to mention that the village was good and Christian and did good things,
I
and
know.
then when they were invaded or whatever, they slowly turned to Satanism, and they were worshiping the devil and doing all these things that were evil, and I'm like,
I know.
"Okay."
Evil.
1940s.
I know.
Evil.
Oh, it's pretty great, yeah.
Yeah.
I also just made a note that, it's beautiful when he's leaving and he's going down the stairs and she's watching him. I thought that was so pretty. And
Yeah.
I
I
have to
also
say go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so I don't know when they were planning to put this in the movie, but just a like little piece of trivia that I read.
Mhm.
Apparently they were originally gonna include like a prologue, like kind of scene, with her
Ooh.
village, right, being attacked by Nazis. And then everybody turns into cats like panthers and basically like mauls them, like kills the Nazis who come and attack. So that was something they originally had planned for this movie. I don't know where they were going to put it in, but they eventually, decided to scrap that idea and didn't do it. But just thought that was
Also,
really
because it was in the
interesting.
middle of the war at the time, and the
Yeah,
US had just entered, so yeah, that's intense.
I know. I read that today and I was like, wow.
That would have been very bold on their part. I love the quote that he says before he leaves, and he says, "Boys who stay for tea can't expect to stay for dinner." I thought that quote was so cute and so of the time. Like, you
I
never would think to say that anymore. You know?
I was just gonna say it's such a 1942 like conversation the whole time.
It is. Yeah, it's so cute, and it's just very of the time, like, you know, the fact that they're even alone in her apartment in 1940s is impressive.
I know. I'm like, oh, she just invited him right up for tea, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So forward of a stranger, they haven't even known each other for 20 minutes.
I know. They just met at the zoo or whatever, and it's like, yeah, come on up. I've never had anybody up here before, but I like you, so come on up.
How scandalous.
Very scandalous. We kind of move on to meet Oliver's coworkers at this point. It looks like he's
Mhm.
like an architect. Is that's what I was assuming he was?
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe I got.
Okay. I don't know if they explicitly mention that he's an architect, but they're like talking about measurements, they're drawing stuff, they have the big light
Yeah,
up tables. So I assume he's an
architect,
architect.
yeah.
So yeah, we get an opportunity to kind of meet Oliver a little bit more and his coworker Alice, who's going to be a big part later on. And I love that he has like the cute kitty in a box that he bought for Irina because of the whole cat theme she's got going on.
And also, I don't think he was listening to the conversation.
I was gonna
Like,
say, maybe a little
she
bit.
doesn't seem to like cats, bro. Like,
I
yeah, he
know.
clearly wasn't listening.
Maybe he was just entranced with her beauty and he missed that whole story about cats and evil and
Yeah, I don't think obviously he doesn't take it seriously, and yeah, but it is a really cute cat, and I'm impressed that the cat could fit in a shoebox, and the fact that he's just willing to leave it in the shoebox all day with holes in the lid.
I know.
Poor cat. I would wanna go back to the pet store too.
I know. And it's like, it's really cute because, Alice gets along with the little kitty, no problem. But when he
Yeah,
actually brings it to Irina to present it to her, it's like you can tell she's immediately like not impressed. And then the cat like hisses at her and she's just like, cats just don't like me.
obviously, I wonder why.
I also had to know I was obsessed again with her clothes. Like she's wearing this coat in that scene and it's like checkered and it's got this big white
Mhm.
collar. It's so
Yeah,
good.
so pretty.
I just want to scoop that thing up at a vintage store, and wear it somewhere cold. It's amazing. Um, Obviously the cat doesn't work out, so they decide to take it back to the pet store and exchange it for another animal, and the
I love
critters
this scene so much.
I know, the critters freak. Everything inside freaks when she enters the building.
The birds, the rabbit, everything, and the owner of the pet store is fantastic. This little old lady.
She's so good.
Yeah. I love that 'cause, they go out into the street with her, and she's like, Irina's just like, "I'm gonna wait here, you go in and pick out a bird for me." And the cat or the pet store owner is like, "Cats can sense when someone is just not right. You can't fool a cat." And, ah.
I literally wrote that line down too because I'm like, you can't fool a cat. That's amazing. You are a cat owner. So, I mean, what do you think? Does this hold true? Is this truth that the lady was saying?
Um, well, I've dated a few guys that I would disagree. I think cats can be fooled. Or they're just their love is blind, but,
Right?
yeah, I I don't know, I think my cats are kinda skittish at first, so I it just depends, but I have never seen a cat hiss like that right away, so
No.
you've gotta be pretty evil to cause that.
Yeah, they knew that cat knew something was up. She could sense it in her. And yeah, they pick out a cute little canary, which I thought was really fun too, because we're already getting this like cat theme, and then we have a bird, which is like natural prey of a cat. So I'm
Mhm.
like, ooh, what is that can't go well. Which it does not. Okay. Um, and then, it's like we kind of leap forward a little bit because then we go to this like dinner party at the restaurant with all of Oliver's coworkers, and it's like they're engaged. We didn't really see that whole thing go down, but like they're engaged at this point. And they are at a Serbian restaurant, and they're sitting there, they're having their talk and everything, which is fun. There's some fun little dialogue in that scene.
There
And
is.
then this woman comes over, and she's all catty looking, and she says, Moya sestra. And she like crosses herself, and it's like, what did she say to you? And she's like,
Yeah,
oh, she called me her sister.
and she looks terrified. Yeah.
I
I
love
read
that.
somewhere, I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently the the people that either wrote the Batman comics or made the show were inspired by this character and based Catwoman on her.
I could see
And
that.
yeah, and when they were looking for actresses for the TV show, they had this kind of vibe in mind for the character. And
That totally.
obviously Catwoman from the TV show is iconic, right?
Yeah, big time. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, apparently with this actress too, the woman who played her, they picked her because she looks like Catty. She has like a cat appearance, and she was like, apparently, like, what are you saying? I look like a cat? And they're like, kind of. You should do this movie. And apparently, her line is the only one that's dubbed. They actually had Simone
Simone
Simon
Simon, yeah.
say it, which I thought
Yeah,
was really awesome. And then I will
yeah.
say, I read a pretty fun fact today about this.
Okay.
Apparently, some people read the moment between Irina and the cat lady as as a lesbian reference. And so Val Luton apparently received a few letters after the movie that really surprised him, because people said basically, thank you for introducing like themes of lesbianism into Hollywood. And he's like, oh, I wasn't. But apparently the writer, the person who wrote the screenplay for this, like loved that and said, oh, I really like that. Like, that's, if you think about it that way, I mean, like, it brings like a cool dimension to the character. I mean, she had this fear of kissing Oliver. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so I thought that was fascinating. But that is what some people took it as at the time, and people actually like commented on it to Val Luton and the like movie people.
There's another moment that we'll get to later that, I was reading about, and it makes sense when you think about it and the rules that go into the cat people and their transformations and stuff like that, that Irina explains to us. But yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously, I don't think it was intentional by
No,
anybody, but, I love it, and I think it makes it even more relevant today, you know?
I agree. I
Um,
read that and I was like, I'm kind of like living for it. I don't think it was intentional. Doesn't sound like it was intentional, but I'm like, I'm living for
it
it.
makes
And
me happy
me
to
too.
think that you can see that in this, and it does make sense when you look at it. I'm like, wow. Like, I was just looking at it
Makes
from the
sense.
1940s perspective of what they were trying to throw in there under the carpet of her being from Serbia and Russia. Like,
Yeah.
you get the Russian vibes because he mistakes her for Russian at first, and
Yes.
she's like, "No, no."
Not me.
Yeah, and there's all these hints of her being, like, evil and, conniving and
Yeah.
manipulative, and it's like, with the implication that all, Eastern Europeans are like this, and
Yep.
yeah, well, 1940s in the middle of yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack with this movie, I feel like, when you start to, like, put it into, like, a historical perspective too, when you think about, like, what was
Yeah.
happening at the time, it's
Mhm.
fascinating. I'm sure people have done, like, really deep dives on that we probably won't go that deep, but, like, oh my gosh, it's fascinating.
Yeah, you could easily write a thesis on this movie because there's so much there. There's so many layers. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I did have a little note about the Catwoman. This is just something I found interesting. The dress that she wears during that scene was designed by, let me see if I have a name here. Renee Conley, and she would go on to win the Oscar for her work on Cleopatra in 1964. So that I thought that was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ah, that's badass, and her dress is awesome, like, I love the cat lady.
Beautiful. And it's so shiny and black, and she really looks more like a cat when she slinks towards the table and out of the restaurant, like, so pretty. Yeah.
Ugh, and her eyes, like, I wish we could have seen her a little bit more because we only get,
I
like, a
know.
moment of her, and that's all I guess that's all we need for the story, but she's just amazing. I could watch her whole, like,
Yeah.
story.
I would have loved a confrontation between the 2 of them, though, and just, like, Irina asking questions. I think that would be
Yeah,
interesting.
because then that would give us, like, lots of good info too, like, about how it works and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, they have this dinner. Obviously, she's feeling pretty wigged out by the Moya Sestra moment in the cat lady. Um, and I love this moment when they're back at the apartment and she's like sitting on the couch and she like claws her like hand kind of like down and it's like
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
um I just kind of wrote the next plot point as she's feeling feline. Something's up with her. So if you have anything to add, let me know. But she goes
I
through
do
these.
have, sorry, I do have one little thing. I thought this was important, the fact that she asked for time, from Oliver and patience, in their transition into marriage, and she this is what I'm talking about with the 1940s jargon. Instead of just being outright and saying it, we have to say, "I want to be Mrs. Reed. I want to be all that that involves, but I just
Ser-
need time and patience."
Seriously, I know. And it's so funny again to think about like the time and everything and how different things were back then, right? Because like they haven't kissed, and they're married and it's like that happened fast. They like I
It's
don't know.
really fast, yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, no problem. We don't have to do any of that." Like,
I know, and I'm like, what is like, this isn't like an issue for either of them. And it's like, you know, if they're happy, they're happy. Okay. But obviously they're not really that happy. But
I mean, I feel like there's a time limit as to how long he needs to wait, and he waits a while.
it's a really
So
long time.
and also, I noticed that they moved into her apartment, and the way the apartment is laid out, the living room is right here, there's the dining room or kitchen, whatever, off to that side, the bedroom, and then the bathroom, and she locks herself in the bedroom many times, that poor man.
I know. And it's also interesting that like, yeah, they ended up moving into her place and I'm like, he's an architect. Like you would think that he has like a pretty nice place, but
Right. That's probably bigger, and, I'm sure they eventually wanna have a family, but they didn't talk about it, so who knows?
I know. We're just like, all right, they're just jumping on into this, and everything's fine. But
Yeah.
yeah, she's feeling kind of feline. She visits the panther again, and I really love the scene where she's talking to like the zookeeper about him. Because
Mhm.
he's like, basically like, "Oh yeah, you're the only one who comes and checks him out or whatever." And she's like, "He's beautiful." And he's like, "He's evil," because the that if it's a panther or whatever, it's evil. So I like that whole
Yeah.
little like exchange that they have.
Yeah, I love him, I think he's great. I love when he says, "No one goes to see the panther when they're happy." And it's like, "Layers here, layers, what are you talking about?"
I
And
know.
And, he's like, "The panther is an evil critter, read your Bible." And then he proceeds to quote Revelations, and he says, "The beast I saw was like unto a leopard." And he's like, Like unto a leopard, but not a leopard, so therefore it must be a panther." I'm like,
You think? Yeah, I know, and I'm like, "You're making a lot of assumptions here, sir," but
"Yeah, just a bit,"
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Pretty awesome. Fun fact too, according to IMDb, the Panthers like, the actor Panther's name was Dynamite.
That's cute.
I was like, "Oh, that's cute." I don't know what it was like being an animal actor in 1942. It's
Probably not good, yeah.
probably a pretty rough gig. So, yeah, hoping that Dynamite had an okay experience on the set.
I've heard bad things about the animals being treated horribly on Wizard of Oz, and this was just a few years later, so I can only imagine. But yeah, we'll hope that Dynamite added a long, happy life.
I hope so. I think that's what happened.
Mm.
Um, but he's still okay, so she's still feeling feline, and the next thing I kinda jotted down was that moment where she starts messing with her bird. The
In a
bird's
very
just in
female
there.
way, right? Just like
Yeah,
smiling, playing with it almost like a cat. Yeah.
totally, and then, like, it dies of fear pretty much, and, she picks it up, and, she strolls on back to the zoo, tosses it to her panther.
Hope that zoo is free because she goes there a lot.
I know. I feel like it's just, like, in a park too, which is, like
Yeah.
it's different. I mean, I feel like I don't know. They
It
don't do
might be New
zoos like
York.
that anymore. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it might be the Central Park Zoo, maybe.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Next thing I kinda jotted down was that, her and Oliver end up having this conversation, and, she tells him that she, like, envies other women, because they're
Yeah.
happy.
And they make their husbands happy, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. And, yeah, he's basically like, "Hey, this cat people thing that you're, like, stuck on, like, it's not good. Like, we need to get you some help, like, from a
Yeah.
doctor."
Which is a big deal in the 40s. They did not think that was socially acceptable. If you had family that went to a psychiatrist, it was frowned upon usually. And yeah, he like right away is like, you need help. Reasonably
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and I actually thought it was really interesting too, because 'cause I'm like, "Man, like, that's actually probably, like, the best thing he could have offered her in that situation," being like, "I obviously, you need to work with a professional on this because it's impacting your life, it's impacting my
And mine.
life. So we need to get you to a professional, and it's okay, like, but that's a really good point. It was not very socially acceptable at the time for that.
Yeah.
And the actual doctor, the therapist visit, I have to say, I thought it was so beautiful when it's just like her face in that light.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
And she's talking about cats, of course, because that is what she talks about. And, through that conversation, we learn a little bit more about like the cat people mythos too, which is like basically like when women are upset or like passionate or whatever, that's when they turn and like kiss somebody. That's when they turn into the cats.
Yeah, it said she said, jealousy, anger, or out of their own corrupt passions. Um, and she says if one of these women were to fall in love and give in to her sexual impulses, she would be driven by her own evil to kill him.
Yep.
So that's pretty interesting right there. So those are the rules, those are the parameters that we've set up. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yep. And so it's like, and I just love that. It's
Yeah, I do
again
too,
the layers, like the metaphor of that and everything, but woman's
for sure.
sexuality, man, like could kill
It's
ya.
scary. Yeah.
I kind of like jump next to Irina comes to the house and Alice and Oliver are there and Irina learns that Oliver talked to her about like her brain and was the one who recommended the doctor and Irina is not happy about it.
So I gotta say something here. Like, I understand Alice is Oliver's friend, and they've been friends for a while, but I think it's really fucked up that, especially in the 1940s, you don't talk about, "My wife and I have not consummated our marriage yet. We have not had sex, and she's mentally ill because of it." Like, you don't do that. I don't care what century you're living in, it's not okay.
That's really uncool. I was gonna ask, like, what are your thoughts on it? Would you be upset? Because I definitely would. Like, I'm
I'd
kinda
be
team
pissed.
Arena on this, and she even says
Yeah.
something to the effects of, like, "But there are certain things that a woman doesn't want another woman to know about her."
Yeah, and that's I think she's completely reasonable in that. Like, there are certain things that should stay between a husband and a wife or just your significant other in general. Like, and the sex life is one, and also mental health is very like you can still talk
Personal.
about it, but you have to make sure that the other person is okay with it. And
Yeah.
she's met Alice like what, once?
Yeah, and it's like there's some kind of obvious, like, now it's not like up front and center and like flirtatious at first, but they have a
Yeah,
very familiar relationship with each other. So it's like
yeah,
that adds like another layer of uncoolness to it, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because like Irina's new to like their dynamic as well. So it's like, man, it's like a really untrusted person for Irina at this time, to be
yeah.
talking to you about this.
Also, like she said in the past, like she's only been in New York for a year before she met Oliver. She's new to the culture of America. And even in the 40s, it's not normal for a man to be friends with a woman outside of work. Like that's very unusual. So,
It's very not normal for the time. So, I
yeah.
mean, it's pretty scandalous considering 1942. Like, pretty
Sure.
scandalous that he's spending as much time with Alice as he is in the first place.
Mhm.
Like they're alone
After
together
work, yeah.
a lot. Kind of not cool, but
Yeah.
guys are dumb. So
Yeah.
okay. I just called this next bit. Things are starting to break. Like things are kind of going shitty. Irina's ditching her appointments now, our therapy
Yeah.
appointments.
I
And
sorry, I don't know when this was brought up either. It might have been during the therapy appointment, but Irina tells somebody that she never knew her father.
yeah,
He
that
died
was the
before she was
therapy.
born. Yeah, and the villagers bullied her and called her mother a Catwoman because her dad died before. So, yeah,
And it does say a lot that it's only women who are cat people.
yes.
Yeah, and the fact that like her mom had people like talking shit because her husband died or left, I mean, or whatever. Did he die? He left.
He died.
He died.
Suppo
Okay.
as what according to what we know, he died.
Yeah.
He could have left, who knows? But yeah. Um, yeah, it's hard being a woman.
It is, especially when people are all like, "You're a cat person. You sinner, you're a monster."
You kill people that arouse your sexual desires, you're evil.
Seriously. As everything's kind of starting to break at this point, Oliver also has this reveal moment with Alice, which like big surprise, all of us weren't expecting this, right?
Yeah, Alice admits she loves Oliver, and, Oliver says he doesn't think he knows what love is anymore after being with Irina, which is so shitty, you know? Like, what's the
Oh.
worst that you're going through? She's depressed and scared because of what's going on with her, and she won't put out? Like, is that really
And Oliver actually makes this comment too, which like makes me feel like he's definitely got a little bit of privilege, right? Because he says, "I'm unhappy. I've never been unhappy before. When I was a boy, I was just dandy." And I'm like, and
had a grand time, I think is what he said, and I'm like,
yeah.
"You know how lucky you are?" Like, maybe it's just from our modern viewpoint, but, like, he can't remember a time where he's ever been sad or unhappy. Like, that's not normal for one.
He needs to see Dr. Judd, I think is his name, because that's not
Yeah.
normal. Like, it's like, "Sir, you were just not processing all of your emotions, I don't
I
think."
think I literally think that's it, like, it's not okay for men to be unhappy or, like, have feelings, so he must not remember. It just must not have ever happened for him. I'm like, "That's some fucking privilege," like,
I I know, and it's like, but yeah, you know that your wife, like, has not had the same experience, dude. Like, she, like,
yeah, you should try to be understanding and talk to her. Like, I know he's tried, but, like, you keep trying, you're married.
I know, but it's like, obviously, like, he's got feels for Alice, and I think that's a big part of it. And
Yeah,
Alice obviously has feels for him, and she makes it clear.
and she won't leave him alone.
I know she won't. And it gets to a point where Irene and Oliver are having this kind of conversation, and then like he basically is like, I'm not gonna argue with you, so I'm just gonna leave. And he just leaves.
Which is not healthy either. Yeah,
Conflict resolution is not their like strong point, or just communication is not his strong point. Not
yeah.
good.
She's trying to talk to him about what she's feeling and, everything that's going on and her suspicions about how she is, maturing as a woman, basically. And
Yeah.
he's just like putting up walls and like, yeah, it's not what you want to hear, but you committed to her, dude. Like,
You asked her, like, it was
yeah,
1942. I doubt she asked you. Like, I doubt she got down on a knee and asked you. You asked her.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you.
And that's something I don't get. Like, if you think you might have feelings for Alice, why didn't he ask Alice forever ago? And why is Alice just now mentioning this? Like, I think that's very unacceptable for her to bring this up when she knows that he's having issues with Irina. That's fucked up.
Yeah, because and
That's
see,
some
this
homewrecker shit.
is some trifling shit. That is trifling. I know, because they had this conversation. Like, Alice knows like what state of mind Irina is in, so it's totally unfair.
Yeah,
But and then, just to like make matters worse, it's like Alice and Oliver actually meet up, and Irina sees them because she's out on the prowl a little bit,
yeah,
and she sees them. I have to say, I love the telephone scene when it's Alice in that room and she answers the phone, and there's that light table, and there's
yeah.
nothing. But then we see
There's
Irina.
it's a great shot. It's so beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And yeah, then we really get to start to get the sense as the audience that like, oh, okay, Arena is maybe dangerous. Like she might
Yeah,
actually be
she's
dangerous.
yeah, we're starting to get the feeling that the cat people are in fact real at this point.
Yeah. That wasn't all just fairy tales.
Yeah.
And so Oliver and Alice kind of meet up. I have to say there's a moment where Alice says, a cat just walked over my grave. Which I
I
love.
love that line so much. I wrote it down too. I'm like,
Yes.
People don't write like this anymore. People don't write like this
No.
anymore.
I know the writing is so fun on this. Such a fun little play on words there. It was perfect.
Yeah,
And then I didn't write a lot about this, I realized, but we have the little scene where like they're in the coffee shop, Alice and
yeah,
Oliver having their coffee and
mhm.
pie, I think it is.
Yeah, because he's obsessed with apple pie. Of course he is.
Of course he is. Child, no.
Most basic man like, white man pie ever. Ugh.
I know, I know. But then, we have this amazing sequence. Oliver and Alice part ways because she says, I'm a big girl, I
Mhm.
can walk myself home. And we have like one of the most iconic scenes of the movie, where Irina is basically stalking Alice as she's walking along. I love the contrast of the colors, we see their heels, and
Mhm.
Irina is wearing black and Alice is wearing white. And
To
she's
signify purity, probably.
I know, where it's like, but she's a homewrecker. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
But
But
we have
she's not expressing her sexual impulses, she's not responding to them,
yeah,
she's saying no.
yeah, such a crock. But yeah, we have this amazing, amazing scene where, Alice is like looking behind her and Arena's following and the trees are crazy. And then we
Yeah,
have actually they call this some people like film historians say this is a really early example of the jump scare.
I heard
When
that, yeah.
yeah, when the bus pulls up, it almost makes a roaring sound too, and,
Yeah,
they actually like, some people refer to jump scares as the Luton bus.
I
Um,
heard that. Yeah, I read that somewhere, yeah, I thought that was really interesting. So fun.
I know, and I love when she steps on the bus because the bus driver is like, "You look like you've seen a ghost," and she says, "Did you see it too?" And I love that moment.
It's great. I honestly, even after she got on the bus, I didn't think she was gonna stay on the bus. I thought she was gonna get her. I was like, I don't think she's done yet. I don't think she's ready to give up, and obviously she's not, but yeah, it was intense.
Ah, I think that scene's so amazing. It's like it's such a great like just moment of tension and like fear.
For
I'm sure it
sure.
really scared audiences back then.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I kind of just like skip forward to when Irina like gets home. Um she locks herself in the bathroom. This is one of those times. I think it's really beautiful when she's crying in the bathtub. I like that
No.
scene.
Also, there's some for 1942, there's some nudity.
And she takes off her
Like,
stockings.
she takes off her stockings from her shoulder down to, like, halfway down her back, there's nudity, and it's like you can her arm is in such a way where you can't see side boob, but there's definitely would have been if the arm was just a little bit higher or lower, and I'm like, when because I've seen so many of these older movies and I'm used to knowing what to look at, like, that moment, I'm just like, "Wow, and they got that pass?" Like, that's
They
crazy.
They really I think they really pushed like the envelope on this movie by the way that they got stuff in. But yeah, you're right. I noticed that too. Like it was nudity for 1942. It's her taking off her stockings and even getting into the bathtub. Like
Yeah.
pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. One of my favorite like cinematic moments in the whole movie is when she's laying in bed and she has that dream sequence.
Mhm.
And, it's her face, and then there's these, like, black cats, like, animated black cats. And
Yeah.
then there's King John, and then it's like, he has the sword, but then it's also like, "Key, key," and she's like, "Oh, the panther cage key that I saw earlier."
Yeah, which is so cute. I thought that was so much fun that, she was like, "This is the answer to my problem. Like, I just need to get the key. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I don't know if I'm gonna let the panther out or whatever," which could potentially signify her accepting who she is at last.
Yeah.
But she's like, "This is what I need to do."
Yeah. So she steals that panther key, she's got it, she's, like, yeah, thinking about it. And then we have this weird, like third wheel kind of date where
Oh my
Alice and
god.
like, I don't even like, that was almost like I feel like that was so cruel, like
That made me uncomfortable where he's like, "Just go upstairs. This is gonna bore you. So go upstairs. I'm gonna hang out with her." And and she's like, "But I like looking at the boats." And he's like he just blows her off. Like,
that
this is a moment to, like, take time and, like, teach your wife about some of your interests, because clearly she doesn't know you very well, and, like, bond instead of just pushing her away again.
I know, to be with Alice, and it's like, man, that is oh, that's so shitty. It's like being the third wheel on a date with your, like, husband.
Yeah. You're the third wheel with your husband.
Yeah. It's not supposed to work
So
that
shitty.
way.
He doesn't even try to hide that he's not interested anymore. He's not even trying to hide it.
I know. I know. It's so
So crazy.
shitty. I really feel for her in that moment.
Yeah.
And then we come to another pretty iconic scene because, they kind of
Mhm.
disperse. So Irina does her own thing, but Alice has to go take a dip in the pool. And this scene is really cool too, because Irina comes to the pool as well and she goes in And we have that awesome scene in the pool where Alice jumps into the pool because she thinks that's the best idea to get away from whatever peril, which I'm assuming she's assuming it's, Irina or the cat or whatever. And we
Yeah.
have the shadows on the wall.
I love that they don't show Irina as a cat. They didn't try to do that. They just show shadows. You hear the panther growl, which is scary enough on its own, right? And it's like pitch black. And I don't know if you've ever tried to go swimming in the dark, but it's not fun.
It's
And I
not.
do not recommend, even if it is in a pool. No.
No. That's nightmare juice.
And that's nightmare juice. Yeah, like no way. And this scene is really where I feel like there's hints of lesbianism underneath. Like, because they mentioned that, granted, it could be read either way, but they mentioned that things that bring out the cat in, the women is arousal,
Mhm.
and anger and just frustration in general. It could also be jealousy, probably a little bit of that. But I think anger, especially because Alice is able to express how she feels, Alice is able to be intimate,
Yeah.
and Irina is not. And I think there might be a little bit of arousal on Irina's part. I think that she kind
Yeah.
of is attracted to her, or at least attracted to what she represents. She's able to
Totally.
be free.
Totally. That's why when I read that when I read that tidbit about people taking it as there was like lesbian undertones to this, like I really like it because I also think that like even if it's not like feeling an attraction to her per se, she's attracted to like what she gets to have and like who she wants that for herself a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And there was something else I read where the therapist is basically um he's kind of the mindset of the time where he's fixing the woman basically
Mhm.
and trying to correct her because she's not living the way she should be by giving in to the husband. And
Yep.
that just plays more into the lesbianism aspect, which I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
when she sees that it's Irina and everything, and she gets out, we have that great little reveal of her robe being torn to shreds,
I like when she gets out of the pool and then Irina approaches her and she gets back in the pool. I thought
and
that
she
was
tells
great.
and she tells the ladies to wait for her because the ladies who work there have heard her screaming and they come down to check on her, and she's like, wait, I'm coming out, like I'm coming, don't leave.
Yeah, which yeah, good for Alice, she knows she's in a horror movie at this point, but
Yeah,
I love that little moment where, like, even though they're there, she still doesn't trust Irina, and she's just like, "I'm back in the pool, like,
yeah.
I know
She's like,
you're
oh,
not coming." Yeah.
oh. Yeah. Now Alice believes in cat people for sure.
Sure does, yeah.
She's like, hey, doc, the cat people thing, I think it's a real thing. And shit is being plotted, the doctor basically has this convo with Alice and tells her that she's borderline crazy and that she could be put away for her
Yeah.
beliefs.
Yeah, and, the therapist guy, he basically says to Oliver he's got 2 choices, basically to lock her up or get a divorce, like, that's it, and neither one of those options is that great.
And I love, like, he basically says that you can't divorce an insane person. So it's like, well,
Officially, yeah.
yeah, so it's like, what do you do? And they wait for Irina to come because they plot this like plan to like put her in a facility or something, which kind of
Yeah.
sucks. But Irina doesn't show. Alice and Oliver head back to the office when they get locked in. And then
Mhm.
they have this encounter with the panther, Irina. They can smell her perfume. That's like one of my favorite
Mhm.
moments in that because she can smell her perfume. You see the panther. They're kind of cornered by it, but ultimately the panther doesn't like really do anything to them, and they're able to leave. But
Yeah. Um, because Oliver
oh, yeah,
uh,
that's right.
Oliver holds up a makeshift cross and says, "In the name of God, leave us in peace."
Which sends it away as a cross will do.
Yeah, that's all you need is 2 sticks put together, and
Yeah,
that'll solve your problems.
yeah.
Anyways,
That's right. And I feel like it's literally like a protractor or something. It's
yeah,
like a
it's one of those
ruler.
protractor things,
Yep.
yeah,
Mhm.
and he just holds it just the right way, and I'm like, I mean, I guess as long as your belief is there,
Yeah,
it'll work, but yeah, it's just so that's one of my things about this movie is that there's a lot of emphasis on good versus evil, which is very common, but like the Christianity aspect just grates me, but it's part of
I
the
know.
times,
I
so
know.
whatever.
Same, same, but it's like, yeah, it's such a part of the time, so it's like,
Yeah,
"Alright, we'll just." Because there's even a quote at the beginning of the movie that has to do with sin, and then there's another quote at the end that has to do with sin or good and evil as well.
I wrote those down, so we'll get to those. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. So after Irina has her little like panther moment with them, she goes back home and the doctor is like waiting for her, and that's
And he
like
tries to
come
basically
on to
like
her.
come on to her and like I know what he's trying to do, but it's so disgusting the way he does it because first off, that's breaking doctor patient relationships right there. That's sick
Not professional.
and not professional whatsoever. Like, so gross. Like, have a husband do it. Ugh. But
Oh,
I kind of get the vibe like he's just, she knows what he's doing. And obviously, she's not attracted to him. So it does not work.
yeah, and she just kind of goes for it, and like you said, I think she's like, yeah, she knows what's going on now, so she becomes the Panther again, and they have this like crazy shadow fight.
Yeah, which is beautiful.
It's so cool because there's a shadow on the wall, and he has this like sword in his cane, so it's like the picture that we saw earlier.
Yeah.
It's like the King John, with the cat.
Yeah.
We see like the panther and the blade and all of that, and it was really really neat.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, then everybody discovers the dead doctor, and Irina strolls through the beautiful fog back to that panther with her key. When we
Hmm.
see Dynamite the panther, and she unlocks the cage, and the panther like basically jumps and knocks her down, and then the panther is like killed and hit by a car, like police car, I
Yeah,
think.
he gets hit by a taxi, and
Yeah,
you actually see
taxi.
the body of the panther, and it's so sad. But yeah, it's she was already wounded in the fight with the doctor. He
Oh
stabbed
yeah.
her like in the pretty brutally, I think, somewhere like in the
Yeah.
chest area. But yeah, I think he just hit her so fast, and panther paws are huge.
Oh,
So
they're a powerful
yeah,
animal. So
yeah.
yeah, she gets knocked down, and we see the panther die, and then we have Alice and Oliver come to the scene, and then we get the crazy reveal of where Irina's body was is now a dead panther.
Hmm. So she is dead now, and that's how it ends with Alice and Oliver living happily
Happily
ever
ever
after.
after.
'Cause that sent a great
Oh,
message to the men in 1942.
I know, right? I know. Poor Irina, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to mention the quotes at the beginning. The first one at the very beginning is, "Even as fog continues to lie in the valleys, so does ancient sin cling to the low places, the depressions in the world consciousness." What's interesting about that is the therapist's name is listed as the person that said it. I don't know if you caught that or not.
I did not catch that.
Yeah. So that's
That's
fun.
that's fun. I've never caught that before.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a fun little one. And then obviously this is about Irina's death. The end quotation is, "But black sin hath betrayed to endless night my world, both parts, and both parts must die, and that's John Donne is the name that was given.
Good old John Donne.
Don't know if it's a real person, but yeah, it's obviously about Irina's life as both a woman and a cat. They
Yeah.
both must die, so, yeah.
That's cat
That's
people.
that's cat people.
Like
Alright,
I
let's
said, so much to pack with this movie. Like there's a lot of metaphor, there's a lot of layers. I feel like there's a lot of different kind of like topics they were touching on or themes that they were talking on in this movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it to be so deep. I was
No.
expecting it to be more like Dracula or
Yeah.
Wolf People, Wolfman, something
Yeah.
like that. Like not so philosophical, but like it was digestible philosophical. It's not like our
Yes.
modern deep cuts that we're used to with A24 and stuff. But yeah, it was fun.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into some trivia time. So you kind of hit on this a little bit. I read that the film was in theaters for so long that critics who had originally bashed the film were able to see it again, and many rewrote their reviews with a more positive spin.
I
So
did
that's
read
really
that
cool.
too. Yeah.
That's very uncommon because most critics, they once they review the film, they're done.
Oh
That's
yeah.
it. That's their opinion. So it's
Yep.
really cool that they rewrote it.
I'm glad too. We all make mistakes, okay? Sometimes you need to see a movie a couple times to actually like get it and
There've been
appreciate
a
it.
few movies for me that have been like that. Like, there have been a few
Same.
where I had to go back and I'm like, "Is it really that bad?" And, like, some, yeah, pretty bad. And then there's others where I'm like, "This is fun. This is okay."
Same, where I'm like, "Why did I hate on this so much? It's not that bad."
Yeah,
So, it
yeah,
happens. People change their
for sure.
opinions.
Yeah. Um, I thought this was fun because normally you get studio heads thinking you went too far. This is the opposite. RKO execs were reportedly skeptical about the finished film, which they believed was too subtle and possibly not overt enough to compete with Universal's brand of horror.
So interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's like, it's not like Universal was over the top or
No.
gory or anything like that, but
No.
they probably wanted Irina to be less sympathetic of a character because she's a woman.
Yeah, and she's evil because
Yeah.
she has
I don't think
human woman urges and thoughts.
yeah,
Not she
I don't think they, made her evil enough if that's what they were going for, but I think it works for this film.
I do too. I really do. Because I empathize with her. I mean, I root for Irina, like, through the whole movie.
Same, I think the other 2 are just awful. I hate Allison Oliver
Yeah,
so much.
I know.
The film was made in 18 days, so that's
Wow.
pretty impressive.
Wow.
RKO gave Val Lewton only $150,000 to make the film, which that's not that much,
No.
resulting in creative producing. This forced many of the scenes with special effects to be done in the shadows, which explains why you don't see a lot of the panther.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, many believe that it increased the suspense in the film, which I think it does when you don't see.
Too.
Yeah, like, you don't know exactly how cat-like she's gonna be, Like, is she gonna be a human with fur on her, or what's gonna happen? It could have been really cheesy and stupid, but they did a
My
good
God,
job.
yeah, it could.
Yeah. When studio execs insisted that more footage of the panther be included in the movie, Val Lewton was able to maintain the budget and the suspense of the film by limiting how many scenes the panther could be visibly seen in.
Okay.
And, he told the cinematographer to keep the panther in the shadows whenever he was on screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So that's fun.
Interesting.
That might explain why she made so many trips to the zoo too.
Yeah, that does make sense. She loves that zoo, man. That's like her happy place, kind of.
Right? I thought this was interesting. Some elements of Algernon Blackwood's short story, Ancient Sorceries, served as inspiration for Irina's backstory in Serbia.
Ooh.
Yeah, they wanted to have more of that in the movie apparently, but the budget didn't allow for that to happen. So,
Yeah. It makes sense based on what I read too about that scene that they didn't do with like the kind of like about her
mhm.
village. So I feel like
Yeah.
they definitely wanted to show a little bit more of that. And I'm like a sucker for like a good like mythos and
Oh,
mythology and
same.
stuff like that. So I love like the story of the cat people and like her village and everything.
Yeah, it would have been kind of similar to The Mummy almost with that kind of vibe, like ancient
Yeah.
mythology type stuff. That would be fun.
Oh,
And just the
yeah.
supernatural elements, that'd be really cool. And I have one last thing, I thought this was adorable. Simone Simon was cast in the role of Irina by producer Val Lewton specifically. He said he wanted to have a girl with a little kitten face, cute and soft
Oh.
and cuddly, and seemingly not at all dangerous.
She fits that bill like 100%. She's adorable.
She's great, and I love her accent. I think she did a great job. That's a really hard accent to grasp, and she looks adorable, but also ferocious and very cat-like when she needs to be. It's so great.
Definitely. I love that. I had a couple I think I had just, like, one other random one that I didn't mention yet. I thought this was really cute. Apparently, Val Lewton's wife said that Val was terrified of cats. He was afraid of cats. Apparently, she said, "Oh, I remember one night there was a cat fight, outside the house, and he was just all up in sorts, because he was worried about the cats, he was worried about the situation, he didn't like it. Apparently, he was not a fan of cats. He was uncomfortable with them. So I just thought that was really
That's
fun.
hilarious. That's so cute.
And then there was also one other thing I thought was really cool. It was a story about when they screened this movie, right? And I guess somebody had thought it would be cute to play this animated short before it. It was like a Disney cartoon about a cat. And so apparently Val Lewton was mortified because then everybody is in the audience like making cat noises and meowing and laughing and having fun with it. And he's like, this is not the mood, for this movie at all. And then like the movie plays and the tone changes big time because it cues up and everyone's like, rare, like into it. And then as it progresses, like the mood changed. Apparently people were afraid of this movie, screamed, shrieked, were afraid. But I thought that was a really fun story too, that he was mortified and somebody thought that would be funny.
That's adorable. That's kind of what, like, Alamo Drafthouse does. They have, like, a pre-show when they show movies, and it's always, like, little things that are kind of relatable, like, like, when I went to see one of the Lord of the Rings movies, they had, like, old, like, advertisements and commercials that Elijah Wood was in. It was so cute.
Oh,
Like yeah.
I love Elijah too, so that's amazing.
It was really cute, yeah, so I feel like a lot of older movies, like, when they were new, they did that a lot, so I love Alamo, they bring the old school with the new, and it's great, I love them, love them.
Shout out to Alamo. I haven't been there yet, but like I can't wait. Like looks like an awesome place. Everything you've told me, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's my kind of theater."
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, it's my go-to.
Aw. Well, that's all I had for I think that's all I had for like fun facts. I think we went over the rest of them, but yeah, there was some
Awesome.
cool little tidbits about this.
I was amazed at all the stuff we could find on this film, like, for how old it was, it's very impressive.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright, Jamie, let's talk about our ratings for this movie. What would you give this movie?
Oh gosh, this one's like kind of hard for me because it's like I don't watch these types of movies all that often. Okay, it's not like necessarily like my type of horror movie. I mean,
Mhm.
honestly, we only have like one kill that we kind of see. There's only like really one kill
Yeah,
in this movie, and that's the
yeah,
doctor.
yeah.
Um, I think that this movie is stunning. I think that it's kind of like just such a prime example of again, like I said, like cinematography of the time, like really good cinematography. The use of shadows, their use of lighting is just oh, it's stunning to look at. I love the feel of it. I love the old timiness of it. It's atmospheric. It's supernatural. It's kind of sexy to you. It's again, empathy. You feel your empathy for her. Get a little mad at Oliver and everybody. All of that being said, I think for me personally, it's like a 7.5.
Okay.
I think like overall as a movie and like what it is as far as like movie history might be a bit higher than that because I think it's really really beautifully done. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's very slept on considering how impactful it is for the genre. Like,
It is
it
slept on.
invented the jump scare, and I know a lot of people hate on that, but it's very effective when you're drawing people in that aren't into horror. A lot of people that have said they don't like horror like jump scares.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a huge element of the genre. It's used all the
yeah,
time. So, yeah, I
it's
do
so
think that this is
common
fun.
now.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I agree. I think this is a lot of fun, for an older movie, if you're not into older movies. I think this is a very digestible film for you. It goes at a nice steady pace. There's lots of suspense, build up. I love older movies. I'm obsessed with old Hollywood and that kind of thing. So this one was a lot of fun. The music, the
Oh,
costumes, I think they did such a great job. And, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I'd probably give it a 7 as well. Um, I'm rating it a little bit higher, I think, because of the significance of the film, and also, even if it wasn't intentional, I think that the lesbian undertones were great, and
yes.
I like the political undertones as well with her character. I think, obviously, that's there if you know historically what's going on, and I think that's fascinating. So I'm gonna give it a 7. I think it's fun, very accessible. Um,
Definitely.
Forewarning though, it's not streaming anywhere, so if you want to watch it, you'll have to rent it on Amazon, which
Yep.
I think it's worth the 3.99.
Worth it.
Just saying. But
Totally worth it.
yeah, it's fun. It's definitely fun. And I'm sure around Halloween time it's more readily accessible because it's, those older movies are usually more likely to be in streaming before, so
Totally. And I'm sure you could find it at like a used, like find a cool DVD copy of it at a used bookstore or thrift store,
eBay,
even
yeah,
eBay. I mean, there's some really cool covers for this thing. I've seen like several and they're gorgeous. Some of them are super pulpy, like, like
yeah,
total noir kind of style covers.
love it so much.
Yeah.
All right, so, I'm not gonna tell you guys what we're doing next time because I don't wanna put my foot in my mouth again, so,
It'll be a
uh,
surprise.
it'll be a surprise for all of us.
Yes.
But, if you all can just keep Ethan in your thoughts and prayers, we love him so much,
Yes, we
and we
do.
hope he will be with us soon, and, this is Cat People 1942. I am Nina,
I'm Jamie.
and we are Bloody Essentials. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.